Not only is the age of the network the reason why it's being retired, but the copper infrastructure of it is the reason why. That infrastructure is deteriorating in the ground. I like to use the example of the Statue of Liberty as a visual for how that's working. That copper statue came over and it was bronze in color and it was bright and beautiful. And then over time it started to deteriorate and get darker and darker and darker. And then eventually start turning that bluish color. Now, at some point, somebody decided to oxidate the Statue of Liberty and turn that statue into the blue turquoise color we see it as now. And it's beautiful, that's fine, but for your telecom services, that doesn't work because it starts to create service issues. Service issues like static on your phone lines working intermittently or not working at all. I think the most bizarre thing that happens for intermittent service is that if it starts to rain for some people, their service goes out. This is a big issue because this technology is one of the only technologies, if not the only technology, that isn't monitored. So if the service goes out, AT&T, Verizon, Lumen, they're waiting on you to let them know that their product isn't working. That's alright when it comes to your phone service, or at least easy to identify. If it's not working, you can't make or receive phone calls. But what about your emergency services? Your alarms, your elevators? You don't know necessarily if they're working or not unless in an emergency situation they don't work. Or if a fire marshal comes out or compliance comes out and checks the line and you find out that you don't have a dial tone. That can be a big issue. A lot of apartment companies have already started to make the switch over from the analog lines to digital services because they've had people get stuck in the elevator and they didn't even know that there was an outage for them. Part 2 of this being an unmanaged service is the cost of labor that goes into troubleshooting the issue. Like I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward for analog lines to know if they're working or not. If you pick up the phone and you're able to make a phone call out or receive a phone call, it's working. But if it's not, it's not. Along the route, there's no way to know where the issue is. Now on a digital signal, for example like a fiber optic network, they're able to send a signal down the line and get it back to know where the issue is or if there's an issue. But with a copper network, there's nothing that can do that. So they've got to go out and send out a technician to figure out where that problem is. That is very costly labor intensive. And on average, telecom employees make 45% more than typical workers. So it is a big expense and a big motivator for providers to move away from this network. The last driver is just the cost of raw materials. We just have to go back to 2000 when the cost of copper per pound was 86 cents. Today, a cost of copper per pound is $4.02. That's about 4 times as much. Now I know cost of inflation makes a difference and stuff like that, but still that increase is very expensive.